Kakadosh, Boker Or, Masechet Menahot, Daf Memtet Amud Aleph 49A1. This is Daf Yomi. We are basically saying now, Tani Rabba Bar Hana Kamed Rav. So taught, Rabba Bar Hana in front of Rav. We're talking about the Shchitat Kivsei Atzeret. If it was going to be done, Shalom Lishma. Okay, Kivsei Atzeret, Sheshachtan, Lishum Elim. What happens if you took Kivsei Atzeret and you thought that they were the two Elim? Because the kvasim are b'nei shnatayim, right? And over here, this is kvasim shem b'nei shana, right? So therefore, what's happening? Because again, it's going to be a difference of a year. So the question is, what happens? So he says ksherin, it's going to be kosher. Velo alu lebe'alim l'shum chova, and they're not going to be yitzedei chova. That means even though it's going to be kosher, they're not going to be yitzedei chova. Okay, so that means the tzibur have to bring another kvasim. So Amaleh Rav, so Rav comes and he tells Rabbi Chana, Alu ve'alu, what are you talking about? It's good for the Baalim and it's good that they are going to be all, I mean, it's not only just kosher. It's good. It's good, no problem. So it means it's going to be a machloka between Rav and Rabbi Bar Chana. So he says, Amar Rav Chasam mistabra mimta de Rav. It's actually mistaber, the reasoning of Rav. Bekesavur elim ushachtan shum kvasim. If you thought they were elim, and then you came and you slaughtered them like kvasim, share kvasim neshum kvasim nishchatu, because the kvasim were done for kvasim. Aval kesavur elim, but when you thought it was elim, and then you did it for elim, lo, you're not. Why? Akira beta'u tavya akira, which means that even though this akira of the korban from a shlamim to an olah was a mistake, right? He says, because if you would have known that it's the kvasim, they wouldn't have done it for elim, but rather for kivsei atzeret. Nevertheless, it's considered an akira. And akira is actually going to be that it's not going to be yitzedei chova. Okay? So he says, V'Rabba Amar Rabba says, akira betaut lo avi akira. It's no such thing as an akira betaut. It's not considered an akira. Meaning the fact that you made a mistake and you wanted to consider it like an olah, whatever it is, that was a mistake. It's not an akira. So therefore, it's not going to be posel whatsoever. So Amar Rabba comes and he says, Umotvitin umotvina nashmatin. We're going to ask this on the Braita. HaKohanim shepiglu b'mikdash. If you have a Kohen that he does pigul in the Bet HaMikdash, mezidin, if he does it b'mezid, chayavin, right? They're going to be chayavim to pay. So imagine you have a Kohen that b'mezid he came and he did this. So what happens? He has to pay. Ha-shogegin, but if it was by accident, turin, it's going to be patur. V'tani Allah, so we learned on it, pigulan pigul, hechidami, what's the case? If you're going to tell me that the Bemet he knew he was a chatat and he was doing it as a shlamim, hay shogegin, you're going to tell me that's shogeg? Mezidin evu, that's mezid. Elala'av, but rather the kasavu shlamimu, the kamechashev ba leshum shlamim. But he thought it was a shlamim and he's thinking that it's going to be for a shlamim. The Ktani, and we learned pigulam pigul. Alma, so you see from here, akira betaut, avya akira. That akira betaut is considered an akira. So Amaleh Abaye comes and he says, Leolam diada de chatati. Really, be'emet, he knows that it's a chatat. And what happens is he thinks that it's for shlamim. Ubeomer mutar, and we're talking about the person that's saying that it's mutar. So Mativ Rabbi Zera, so asks Rabbi Zera, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, כל המנחות שנקמצו שלא לשמן כשרות ועלו לבעלים לשום חובה, all the menachot that was done kmitza shelo lishma, it's going to be kosher, right? And they were going to be oleh labealim for chova. She'ena menachot domot lezvachim, because the menachot are not going to be domot for the zvachim. She'akometz machvat leshum marcheshet, because when a person is going to be kometz a machvat for a marcheshet, maaseh amochim alei shim machvat. So I mean, it's proving that it's going to be a machvat. Chareva, if it's going to be chareva, so he says leshum belula, which means chareva, remember, is dry. So it means that the dry one for belula, that it's going to be mixed with oil. But to do with the korban, it's not like that. Why? It's all the same. You remember we already brought this concept down. When you bring, right, certain types of menachot, the menachot already, the way that you do the mincha is showing you what type of a mincha that it is. So if it's dry, you know that it's going to be dry. If it's going to be wet, you know. By a korban, right? it's all the same. The same shchita has to be done by every single korban. The same zrikat adam has to be done by every single. The same kabbalat adam has to be done. It's all the same. So it means you don't know if this is going to be a shlamim, an olah, a this, a that. So he says elalav, but rather, right? So he says the kasaber malcheshet. You thought it was a malcheshet. The kami says shu malcheshet and you made a mistake. The hachahu the maseh mochim alea. Which one? The malcheshet is one of the types of the minchas. Minchat malcheshet. Okay. So he says the hachahu the maaseh mochim alea habealma akira betautav. This is considered an akira. So he says Amalei Abaye says leolam diadad machvati. You knew that it was a machvat. The kakamis l'shu malcheshet, but you did it for a minchat malcheshet. Right. The one of the machvat is how you're doing it. You're doing it in a pan. Right. And the malcheshet, right, is that you're not using a pan. Okay, meaning that there's going to be the way that you're doing the menachot is going to be done in differently because basically it's the way that it's going to be fried. So the way that it's going to be fried, right? The minchat machvat is metugenet b'machvat, right, which is kli shatuach, and the marcheshet, right, is metugenet b'marcheshet, which is kli tigun amok. It's more deep fried, right, which is harbe yoter shemen. He says here, "Fichach mincha melcheshet hiraka." It's like rach. It's rach, right? I would have said it's because when you put it in deep fry oil, so therefore it's like much more like the sounds or whatever. Like so again, it's deep fried. Yeah, the sound. Yeah. So he says, the Rabbi goes according to his reading. He says only when you have a machshava, which is not nikar, that's when the Torah says that it's going to be pasul. But if it was a machshava, which is going to be nikar, we do not say that it's going to be pasul. There's a Mishnah. Memtet Amud Aleph towards the bottom, the Mishnah. Okay? The Mishnah says, Atmidim en mekvim et musafim. The Tamid, the Korban Tamid is not going to be Ma'akev the Musaf. Remember, the Korban Tamid was brought down once in the morning and once in the nighttime. That's what we do. Tamid shel Shachar, Tamid shel Ben Arbaim. That's Shachrit and Mincha. Right? But it's not going to be Ma'akev the Musaf. Velo Musafim mekvim Tmidim. And the Musaf is not going to be Ma'akev the Tmidim. Yeah? So he says, yeah, velo Musafim mekvim et zeh. And also the Musafim are not going to be Ma'akev each other. Right, but im lo ikrivu keves baboker. If they didn't bring the keves tamid shel shachar in the morning, yakrivu Rabbi and bring the afternoon one. Amar Rabbi Shimon says Rabbi Shimon, Ematay one of these words bizman shayu anusino shogin if only if they were honest or shogeg. Havarim im zevidim, but if they were mezid velo ikrivu keves baboker lo yakrivu Rabbi. Don't bring the afternoon one. Right, very interesting. That means if they were mezid, they didn't do the morning, they don't do the afternoon. Lo iktiru k'torah baboker. If they didn't bring the k'torah in the morning, right, still they bring the ben Rabbi. Amar Rabbi Shimon v'kula hayita kreva b'remayim. Bring the entire thing in the nighttime, meaning the full amount, right? If they didn't do it in the morning. So he says she'em mechanchin mizbach hazahav ela b'ketoret hasamim. Because the only way that they start with the mizbach hazahav on the inner mizbach is only with the ketoret hasamim, right? Velo mizbach haolah ela b'tamid shel shachar. Not mizbach haolah, only the tamid shel shachar. Velo et hashulchan ela b'lechem hapanim. Right? B'Shabbat, right? He says, but only with the shulchan was only with the lechem hapanim on Shabbat. Lo et menorah b'lechem shiva ninoteh ben arbaim, and also the menorah with the 7 candles ben arbaim. Says the Gemara, Ba mine Rabbi Chia bar Avin merav Chasta, asks Rabbi Chia bar Avin from Rav Chasta, tzibur she'en lahem tmidin musafin, right? Eze mem kodem. Imagine right now the tzibur that they're not able to get tmidin and musafin. What comes first, the tamid or the musaf? So asks the Gemara, Yechidami, what's the case? If you're going to tell me the tmidin of the same day, musafin diomeh, pshita, the tmidin are going to be adife. Why? Tayulo tadir umugdash. First of all, it's tadir v'shena tadir kodem. Plus, it's mugdash. It's more holy. Ela tmidim macha. We're talking about the tamid of tomorrow. Umusafim of today. So tmidim adife. So the tmidim is going to be adif. Why? Sheken tadir. Or maybe the musaf is adife because it's going to be mekudash. Meaning right now you have the it's more holy because it's Yom Tov. So maybe today it's maybe. So that's meaning like this. If it's going to be the same day, pashut the tamid comes first. But if it's going to be the next day, so therefore you have the tamid of the next day, you have tadid, but you have the musaf of today, which is mekudash. Elmaleh, he says, 22, we already learned it. What's the case? If you're going to tell me that he has it, right? And basically what we're saying, that's to do with the liyan kidima. Vatanya, we already learned it right. How do you know that the first thing that you do in the morning is always a tamid shel shachar? He says to Mulumar, but it comes to teach you, V'arach alea ha'olah, right? Ve'amar Rava, and Rava says, ha'olah, olah rishona. Olah is the first thing that goes in the morning. Meaning, lifne kol korbanot kulam. Maba, tamid shel shachar. Tamid shel shachar is the thing that awakens the mizbeach. It's the first thing that you do. Memtet amubet. Ela pshita, deletle. But rather, you don't have it. Ve'id yomeh, if it's the same day, amai why? Tadir mekudash, tadir. Right? It says, it's here it's tadir and mekudash. Meaning, the korban tamid of that day is going to be better because it's also kadosh and also it's tadir. More than just a musaf that is mekudash, elalav, but rather the next day. So it comes out that they're going to be shakul. So therefore, it comes out that we just answered the question of Rabbi Haya. So he says that why is it then you don't say en ma'avidim ela mitzvot? He says if you're going to tell me then that they're equal, so therefore you should do the musaf of today because en ma'avidim ela mitzvot. So he says no, that it's still the tadir is still a little bit more this and that. Okay, fine. So Amarle Abaya comes and he says leolam really be'emet the itlu you do have the animals velikadam and we're talking about to do with kidima. Now kasher chasa you ask the question should I davar kodem mitzvah right? You shouldn't have anything before the tamid shachar. He says no, that's a mitzvah be'alma. Mitzvah be'alma means that it's lechatchila, but it's not b'diavad. So b'diavad you could do something else, but lechatchila it is that way. Okay. Tashema, we're going to try to bring another proof now. You're not going to have less than six tlaim, six kvasim, which are going to be bdukim in lishkat tlaim. Kedei l'Shabbat, l'shnei yamin tovim shel Shana. Right? In order for the Shabbat and 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. So hechidami, what's the case? If you're going to tell me now you have the tmidin musafin, tuvavu. You've got much more than that. Elalav deletle. So obviously you don't have it. Ushmamina. So we learn from here. Tmidin adifa. So the tamid is going to be more important. So says the Gemara, no. Leolam ditle, really bemet, you do have the tmidim and also the musafim. Vehachi kaman, this is what it means to say, right? En pochatim mishishat tlaim vokerim lishkat tlaim bayamim kol meshchita. Right? You're always going to check the 4 days before. You remember we always mentioned that you always have to check 4 days before to make sure that there's no blemishes in the korbanot. When do we mention this halacha? I'll give you a hint, Ashkenazim. Another hint? Slichot. We said that the minhag of Sfaradim is we do slichot the entire month. Minhag Ashkenazim, you have to do it minimum of 4 days before Rosh Hashanah, because 4 days before bringing a korban, and it says that on Rosh Hashanah that we are bringing a korban. So therefore, the 4 days before they're going to come and they're going to do slichot because it's like checking the animal to make sure that there's no blemishes. So that's what we just mentioned over here, right? That it's going to be arba yamim kodem shchita, 4 days before the shchita. Umani, and who is that? Ben Bagbagi. The Tanya was learned to the right of Ben Bagbag Gomer. How do you know that you need 4 days of checking into the korban before shchita? Tamulomar tishmeru lakriv ilmodo. What does tishmeru? You have to watch over it. Ulhalanu omer, and there it says vayalachem limishmeret. So what does that mean? Ad arba asar yom, until the 14th. So they were on the 10th of Nisan, and they were taking the seh to bring it on the korban pesach on the 14th. So it's 4 days. So to you need 4 days before shchita. So they learned the mishmeret from mishmeret, meaning just like by the korban pesach, they took it on the 10th of Nisan, which was on Shabbat, and then they came and they brought it on the 14th, which is going to be on the Thursday, right? So therefore on the Wednesday, right? So therefore what happened was, and then they left on the 15th, right? So he says, so what happens is that because the 14th, because that night was already the Tanit Bechorot, right? The Hadiko Makah Bechorot. So he comes and he says, what happens? So he says, just like over there, it's going to be 4 days. So 2 years, it's going to be 4 days. Samale Ravina Ravashi says, Ravina to Ravashi, Hani Shisha Shivavu. He says these 6 kvasim in Lishkat Tlaim should have been 7. Ta'ika de Tzafra Tetelta B'Shabbata. Because you served the Tamisha Shachar of the 3rd day, which is before, right? Why? Motzei Rosh Hashanah, which is Lish Shlishi, they didn't have time to do it yet. So you need that one as well. So he says, well, according to your reasoning, it's going to be 8, not 7. Temanya have. Ta'ika de Panya de Maleh Shabbat, because you got Erev Shabbat as well. So he says, halakasha, it's not a question. The Levata da Akrav Kama, we're talking about that it's after you already brought the Tamin Shalom Rabayim of Erev Shabbat. right? And then it's going to become 7, and then the Gemara is going to continue with how many Bemet are there over there.